Let's have a look at detailed drawings. We plotted points and lines onto our sitemap, but we need to convert those into objects that we will recognize. In our case, we plotted two cannons, but we may have other things. The anchors are there, the rudder, and various parts of the shipwreck are all there. And having two lines that says cannon 2 is helpful to an extent, but it doesn't tell us enough about those objects for us to analyze this. As I've said previously in the manual, the sitemap really is vital for the work that we do. We may never see the shipwreck site again. It may be covered by sand. We may never get the opportunity to go back and look at it. So we need to put as much detail as we can onto our sitemaps. The detailed drawings that you're going to do will be of the objects that were recovered from the site and that are found in your bag labeled finds. But I'm going to demonstrate using the example in the manual and on the wreck site itself. As I said, we know the orientation and we know the two endpoints of the cannon, but there's a lot of detail that we don't see on the marks or on the points that we took. We don't know how wide the front of the cannon is, the back of the cannon, or any point in between. We don't know where these decorations are, and we don't know where the real detail of the cannon lies in relation to the rest of the site and on the cannon itself. The detailed drawings focus very much on the objects. We've already positioned it on the site, so it doesn't matter at this point where all of these are in relation to the baseline. We can find that out later. But we would want to measure, for example, the diameter of the front of the cannon, the back of the cannon, where these decorations are. You can see that they stick out a bit more than normal, so we'd want to know how much they stick out, how far along each of these features lies on the cannon, so that we can draw it up, and you'll see the description of that in the manual. So let's have a quick look at this one. We can see the front of the cannon is 4 millimeters. So we could plot that distance onto the points and lines that we already have on the map. Remember, we've plotted the center line of that cannon. So for 4 millimeters, we would have to plot 2 millimeters each side. And again, this is described in the manual, so you can read about it there. So in our case, we would put the 2 millimeter mark on our central line, and we would be able to take our pencil and mark 2 points, 2 millimeters each side, connect them, and that would be the front of the cannon. And we would do the same as we go along the cannon with the various features that we have measured in. We could then join those lines, and we would be able to plot in. I'm drawing this freehand, of course, without the measurements, but we would be able to plot in all of the features of the cannon accurately and in relation to everything else. Having done that, we can use our site maps and the scale that we know to take other measurements. If we wanted to know the distance from various features to the baselines or to other objects on the site, we can do that from the detailed measurements. So that's a very helpful way of describing things, having other people be able to access and analyze the sites, and for us to get a much nicer picture of what's there. But we can use those in our interpretation of the shipwreck sites. So have a look at your manual and think about how you would do this on your objects. For example, I'm not going to do the objects that you have, but if this was one of the objects that we were looking at, what measurements would we need to take in order to describe this object? And we would immediately say we need to know the height of it, the length of it. We'd need to know the diameter at the bottom. We'd need to know the diameter at the top. But also, we may want to know the diameter of the hole where the pencil goes in. We may want to know where these circles are, where that point is on the bottom. So we would measure all of those. We would have probably plotted the 2 center points, so we could use that as our center line. But as this is not plotted into the sitemap, we would do this freehand. So we would choose a position to draw this. And we ask you to draw these objects in the questions that you ask about each of the artifacts that you will be looking at. So think about what it is that you want to record, the decorations, the measurements, the dimensions, and you can draw a really accurate picture of what any object looks like. But you need to, everyone is different. You need to think about exactly what it is that you want to describe and what you think is going to be important.